155203 Maintenance of a Railway Car, Chapter 5 Under Frame Assembly, Section 1 General 5.1 Under Frame Center Fill. The center seal of a structural frame is a bolt-up central longitudinal structure member of the underframe of the car forms of the backbone of the frame. If transverse buffer shocks to one end of the other and contains couplers and draft gears and pockets at the either end. B. The side seal of the underframe is the outside of the longitude members of the underframe. In some cars, especially flat cars, the side frame strengthened in other cars, such gondolas and coppers. For the example, of the entire side of the cars may be designed as a deep plate ride girder or truss of the car carry much as load as the bolster. One of the hook link equipped cars, it is referenced to the withstand the buffer shock. C. The end seals of the frame is transverse in member, extending across the end of the longitude center. Inside the member may be fabricated, rolled, and pressed in steel. It will with steel connections either in bracket or gasket plate type. D. The floor stringer. The steel construction of the term floor stringer is applied for the longitude members. Sometimes used to support floors. Longitude floor stringers sometimes occupy the position similar to intermediate built or not designed as sills. Back to sills. 252 underframe of body bolster. Body bolster is a transverse member of the underframe over the car. The trucks of the weight of the underframe superstructure, if in any of the loading of the car carried in the longitude sills is transmitted to the truck. The body bolster carries the transmit load of the mated body bolster. In the truck bolster center place, the body bolster resting on the truck bolster. A typical welded frame steel underframe is shown in Figure 5.1. 5.3 The cross bears and cross ties. Cross bears and transverse structural members of the underframe places between the bolster. The act is between the body sills and the center sill anchorage help to distribute the weight of the car, and lading and the stiffening structure in the cross bears and built in a single unit is extended across the cars. The side sill to the side sill, usually the fillers between the center sills and the center, and the term cross ties commonly applied to those members which tie together the side sill and the near side members of the center sill. 5.14 Striking plates of the casting. Striking plates of the casting component part of the coupler drafting gear arrangement. They are riveted welded to the end of the sill, fitted around the opening in the car couplers to help prevent the damage in the center sill, as the coupler horn will strike when the draft gear is weak defected. Hit your cross bear, your center sill, your cross tie, your intermediate sills, your body bolster, your coupler for the draft gear, which is paper, newspaper, and your striking plate. 5.5 One of the basic development requirements for overseas fleet of the flat car underframe, which is satisfactory supercars of the boxcar, high seat, low side gondola, possibly caboose cars could be easily economically assembled for the field and used in zero service and minimum maintenance. The 40-ton overseas flat car, the underframe truss rod features a built-in take of the standard automatic coupler at 34.5 inches coupler height as well as European hook and link in the coupler of the Wilson coupler at the 41-inch coupler height. The exchange in the coupler height is accomplished by the use of the coupler collars as bolster center plates and shims of the side bearings of the both bullet body and truck bolsters. Design load limits is fixed 34,000 pounds per axle based on a 5 by 9 inch axle. 5.6 Field assembly underframes and knockdown overseas at the complete fabricated as a builder shops at the Conas, the ship to depot storage and or transshipment. Field assembly of the flat cars will involve placking underframe of the truck assembly, inserting the kingpins and keys, mounting in the braking cylinders, and the foundation braking into the necessary connection of the part of the foundation braking built into the truck assembly. Overseas underframe is probably consistent almost entirely with the structure repairs and discussed in the following section 5.2 and 5.13, illustrated in two steps assembling of knockdown type cars. This is 5.2 component parts being installed under the underframe. Section 5.3 completed underframe of the trucks. Section 3 repair procedures. 5.7 Usually the procedures be used to main typical repairs to the underframes and other components are discussed in the following paragraphs. Only the generally information include the nature and extent of the damage, accessible damaged parts, and primarily disassembly to the removal components and other factors determine the individual required for any particular repair. Details are not discussed, but the general procedures to be followed in repair certain damaged parts of the frame members are indicated. Exact methods are used to make good judgment and extent of the car man. Ease and handle After careful measuring of the planning, the required template of the construction template is used to mark the cutting of the desired piece of the steel plate and beam, channel angle, iron, and kind of material necessary for the repair. The template is used in the marking of the new piece. The pieces is placed on a heavy and plank supported benches, hoses, and some similar base illustrated figure 5-4. Template is clamped in position of the piece in holes and cuts and marked, and after template is secure, the piece is ready for the cutting and drilling, and followed with the installation under frame over the other than the part of the car. 5-5 and 5-16 shows the templates of the angles of the I-beam respectively within when it will not necessarily serve duplicate parts, but stops and templates of figure 5-5 to save time and trouble. Sorry, I was offhand. I'm saying, okay, we'll go back to 5-7. The usual procedure to be used in making the typical repairs to the car underframes the components are discussed in the following paragraphs. One of the general information is nature and the extent of the damage, accessibility to damaged parts, primarily disassemble the removal components and or other factors determining individual required and any particular repair job. Details not discussed, but general procedures to be followed in repairing certain damages of frame members and the indicated exact members are based on good judgment experience of the car. 5-8, the special job uses a template. Special kinds of repairs are required to the special part pattern of the patch. After the method repairs have determined a template of that patch should be made when the part is replaced and the new one template issues, and the new part will fit exactly, and the necessary holes will be marked correctly with a minimum lifting flooring. Template is skeleton construction based and retaining shape, and the easiest to make and handle the template and should be light construction for easing handle. Carefully measuring and planning the required template is constructed. The template is used to marking the cutting desired piece of steel plate, the beam, chain, angle, iron, and the kind of material necessary for the repair. The template is used for the marking of the new piece. The base is placed on the firm. The heavy planks supported by the benches, horses, and some heavy bases illustrated in figure 5-4. The template is clamped in position, one piece holes cuts and marked, and after template is secured, the piece is ready for the cutting and drilling following the installation of the underframe other than part of the car. The figure 5-5 and 5-6 shows the template to the angles and the I-beam respectively when necessary to become several duplicated parts of the stops and templates. Figure 5-5 save time and trouble. B, straighten out of the square underframes when the car's sideswipes received to the blow of the corner and whose underframe may be forced out of the square. The end of any side stems may be bent and so badly that they may be removed. The later head and straightened under the press. The center sill body bolster, cross-size digital brace is a reminder that the underframe can be left connected. Two chains attached to one around each end of the bolster and brought together into the middle of the underframe of the pull jack, and the pull jack exerts the diagonal pull of the underframe, bringing it back into the square. Application heat of the center and still may be speed of the operation. You see your 5-5, you have your 5-4, you're marking with the templates, and when your mounted horses the material necessary for work. 5-5 template for the angle iron. You use wording for the rivets to stop the plates and laps. You have your 5-5 template angle iron. You have your angle iron with your wooden slats. 5-9 steel spiking. Generally, frequently underframe, the seals are cracked and broken through the deterioration, rough handling accident. In many cases of crack and break of such proportional location of the whole member must be replaced. In other cases, repaired by splicing when practicable, especially in a theater of operations. Splicing and recommendation splicing may be done in sill adjacent to another splice. Adjacent to the sill of the splice, whether the break is on the inside, outside, or completely through the procedure, may be generally as explained by the BLO. In all cases, splicing and reinforcing covering plates must be used in each side of the broken sill over the fracture. B, center sill. Before the broken sill is spliced, measure that the web flange is a piece of the steel plate and thick as was sill, and to be spliced marking off, cutting off the space of location of rivet holes rivet holes and the marked off of the sills and splices. The marking off of the done using the template described in paragraph 5-8, or by measuring and marking after the splice plate is put in place. The holes may be marked in the punching of one. Drilling before any holes may be made in the sill adjacent to the broken parts of the sill must be drawn together, and the butt slided joint splicing. These tie bolts to the sill and unit until the splicing is secured. And the CONOS AAR regulations may be requiring welding and breaking before application of splice. Cover the plates as soon as sill and prepared, and cover plates applied for the riveted in the riveting process discussed. See end inside sills. Because of the stress and land and strain to which an end in sill is subject, they are frequently badly bent between the buffer and the corner of the car. The damage is repaired placing the jack against the bent part and applying heat to the sill and with an acetylene torch, at the same time tightening the jacket, illustrated in 5.7. This usually restores an end to its original position. Side sills usually can be straightened in the same manner. Same kinks and side end sills may be straightened in heating and hammering. Broken sills and may be placed in any of the between the end sills. D. The crossbearers. Defective crossbearers usually are cut out and replaced with new ones in this sense. They connect, and certainly side sills with a simple operation. Remove the crossbearers may be patched, and if they cannot be done reflectively, with a replaced or repaired crossbearers must be removed in cutting rivets, which connects each crossbar to the center sill in the side figure. I have one of the angle irons which connects the two arms and cut loose used on new crossbar and thread operations where the acetylene is not available. Rivets can be removed manually, cutting the leads off the chisel bar and sledgehammer, knocking out old rivet bodies from the use of drifting punch hammers. Stringer support. Defective stringer support usually is replaced if they removed in a manner similar to the described renewing crossbears. Here is a 5.7 with a bolt, the jack, fixing the center sill with a block, the jack, and the block sill, fixing the warp. 5.10 draft castings. After frequently found broken drafting casting can be removed by taking out of the drafting gear the coupler and uncoupling the rivets, which uncoupling the levets of the rivets that have the draft casting in place of the beam removed, and using acetylene torches torch up the rivet piercing. If the rivet burst and is available, the punch is substitutable for a chisel. The old rivets backed out. When the rivets are removed, the draft casting can be easily lowered out. The new drafting casting can be riveted or welded in place. 5.11 The cover plates. The center sill of the cover plate may be patched and cutting out of the defective plates, replacing the new ones, and the new plate should be the same thickness of the old cover and should be lapped at about 6 inches at the point of the old cover plate. Defective body bolster cover over the plates should be removed since they are bare to and much strained to the patch particular. 5.12 Body bolsters. General body bolster fillers are frequently broken and substantial repairs can be made on the patch, flange, and top bottom to fill the place and to be patched and spliced. Some patches should be extended at least 12 inches on each side of the brake. They should be secured and riveted on the web on each side, staggered to the fit of the condition. In CONOS, the AA rules permit the patches can be welded and riveted in securing the top and bottom flanges of the patch. The flange and the bolster should be long enough to be going through the top of the bottom cover and plates, and however the best is to cut out the broken body bolster fillers and replace to the remove of the pressed steel flange filler. The top, bottom, and the car over plate must be loose in rivets in which to connect the filler, and the center sills and side sills must be coveted in the rivets which connects the adjacent crossbar to the side sill must also be cut. The side sill can then be strung out enough and to allow old filler to be removed and a new one fitted in place. B. The body baluster center plate. The broken body baluster center plate must be renewed. The rivets heads are cut off, and then the acetylene torch the rivet busters, and the whole rivets punched out. Sometimes the center plate will be have to provide down over the rivet thread heads of the removed because of the plate shanks and the sideways to fit in the small space between the lower baluster covered plate and the center plate in the case of the rivet shank, and cannot be driven up and necessary to burn off the rivet shank. But below the center plate before the upper rivet can be removed. During rivet welding, a new plate can be held temporarily in place by two diagonal place bolts. 5.13 Straightening and repairing sills. General in the center and side sill is bottomly broken and damaged, and the repair is impracticable. The sill must be complete and completely removed and replaced with a new one. It must be disconnected from the end of the side, the body bolster, the diagonal races the crossbar and the string supports. When the new one is installed, it must be connected in all parts. B. The broken end is the end of the sill breaks, and the break usually occur when the center in the case of the better to end of the sill to replace the new one, and the new end of this should be heavier designed to the original damage. 1. To remove the end of the sill, it's necessary to take the grab irons in the uncoupling level cast cast off. If the sill has a cover plate, the cover plate shall have been removed. After the sill has stripped, the coupler should be removed, and after the striking casting, corner plates and diagonal braces removed from the old grab irons, under coupling, lever casting, and if undamaged, may be replaced in the new sill, the new end of the sill, and then placed on the riveted welding to all connection parts. Broken and ended skills may be repaired. Strike casting is removed in a patch flange and covered to the top of the length of existing down from the face of the face of the sill, and riveted or welded both to the faces to the top of the leg, and the patch must be 24 inches long and heavy material. C. Bent sills. If a sill is badly bent, it must be removed. From repair, such sills must be heated and furnished and straightened under the press sill. Bent out of line to that one side or the other can straighten, placing underframe in jacking stall, and whether it may or be jacked, whether jacking is used or not. A procedure of the same jacks should be is placed up against the farthest out of the line anchorage. Jacks can be replaced in most convenient points, and along with the sills, depending on the extent of the bend, the jacking points always will restore the sill into its former position. When jacking such sills in line, it is always best to jack them slightly past the point of alignment. Permits them to spring back to the extended toward the original set with the jacks released. To the center of the side sill, which are bent down, and either are usually can straighten and chaining underframing and firm to the rails of the body bolster, and are jacking under the ending of affected sill. If the sill is bent up at the ends, it may be firmly secured from the underside of the ends and firmly can be jacked up at the center. If the sill is bent down and sent, both ends may be securely body bolster jacks and be placed under the set, or jacking up this restore underframe the position 514 diagonal braces. These braces extend from the body bolster at the top of the flange of the center sill, the top of flange of the end sills and side sills. These braces may be brake and gusset plates, and the fastened plate braces at each of the end of the brake is either case. In the diagonal braces of the gusset slates usually are cut out of the plate cut out and replaced. The rivets of the points of a connection must be cut to the release of the braces. 515 striking casting. These castings are breaking and badly damaged. They should be cut loose and replaced. The rivets and burned, cut out and punched out in the old striking casting, removed, a new one riveted into place. 516 in care. Section 4 rivetings. 516 general. In care in a car repair work, rivets are universally used in holding together such joining plates and structural shapes of the members. In most instances, spiking and done in cover plates. There was required the cover plates are secured. The rivets, the structure of the member repair rivets, and generally are headed portable compressed air operated forges. However, one of the two of the rivets from the small job can be satisfactorily heated and acetylene torched. And standard practices, safety precautions should be observed when riveting DA PAM 551. The rivets used in all riveted splicing should be same as the existing type in the other frame. 517 types of rivets. General rivets in the freight car work have 4 different types of heads depending on the place of whether they are to be used in the bottom, cone, countersunk, or steeple. The bottom head is the most common type because it is mostly formed in the repair of the tanker car interiors. Cone-headed freight rivets are used because they're strong and do not chip easily. Steeple head rivets are usually floors of the hopper cars because they have less tendency to retard in bulking loading. When the car is being dumped, the countersinking head is used to finish the flat surfaces required, such as the place where the part riveted are to be covered by a plate, and more clearance is required between the moving of the riveted parts. B. The riveted length. The proper rivet length is determined by the thickness of the part to be joined, and the rivet must be long enough to project beyond the rivet hole to leave sufficient shank so that it had informed at the end, and the length of the shank is necessary to be the form of a head varies from 1 inch to 1/8 of an inch diameter to 1.5 inch, and from 7/8 of an inch rivet. Generally, a shank must be twice the diameter of the rivet, and proper length of the rivet is not available. Do not attempt to use a rivet shorter than the length because the flat, insufficient head of the form and shank may fail to fill the hole where the rivet will become loose. The proper length of rivets available for selecting one longer. The require cutting into the proper length. Do not use a rivet that is too long without cutting it into its length. 518 rivet Fitting. General before any riveting parts of the B joined and secured in correct relative position. There is done inserting special fitting and inserting special fitting bolts into enough rivet holes that they secure the parts and the parts drawn lightly together. These bolts should be exactly the same size as the rivets to be used and will be removed only when the rivets have been driven in remaining holes. Remember, wherever the surface does not come up tightly together, and striking them and sledge simultaneously tighten up the bolts and help to up them close. Fitting up the bolts should be so located the majority of the punch holes are in alignment. If it is not aligned, holes will be redeemed. B. The riveting spaces. The spaces of riveting determined by the particular job type and thickness of the plate or casting. General, the distance between the rivets and center to center should not be less than 3 times the diameter of the rivet. The maximum center to center distance should not exceed 6 inches of the rivet of 3/4 of an inch and diameter shank and large. Center of the rivet holes should not less than 1 1/4 of an inch for a 3 1/4 and 7/8 of an inch rivet from the edge of the piece of the work, except for where the piece is less than 2 1/2 inches wide. When it is in the distance from the edge of the piece of the center of the rivet hole, it should be at least twice the diameter. Rivet should be not exceed the 8 times the thickness of the plate. When the plate being worked adjacent to the legs of the angles of flanges, there should be allowance of between the legs and rivet centers at least 3/8 of an inch and 1 1/2 an inch diameter of the rivet head. 519 General. Riveting should be being one at the end of the places, continuing around the fitting of the bolts within the holding of the members together. Riveting along the piece. Do not speak from place to place. Or skipping fails to draw the parts tightly. Pull parts together tightly. Hot rivets can contract the cooling and drawing of the piece of firmly together. Therefore, riveting driven should not be domestically. Nude rivets driven alongside cool rivets. Surface next to riveted paint pieces of metal should be coated in rust preventative paint and minimize rusting out of parts. D. Driving methods. Rivets should be fitted squarely into the hole so that the hole is completely plugged. That the point of the rivet should be then bent should be upset and so that the fill of the hole is the entire of the length. The riveting hammer should be used in the power enough to form the perfect head without rocking a hammer to work down the edges. The hammer should be started slowly and applied lightly until the head rivet has been settled into the hole enough that the head has been formed to hold the rivet into the hole, and then full pressure can be applied. To obtain the tight rivet work, it is essential that the rivet be handled and seated in a hole while red hot and completely driven before cooling. The method used for the rivet head depends on the type of riveting machine used and will fall into the categories of compression succession of rapid blows accompanied by rotary motion of the rivet set, compressive rolling and spinning motion, and application of pressure in an electrical head rivet. To drive and flat-headed countersunk rivets, the hammer must be held firmly in position so that it does not slip the rivet in one way. Does it hold the hammer? C. Riveting machines. There are 2 general types of riveting machines: the air pneumatic driven of the riveting hammer, or the yoke of the gap of the riveter. The pneumatic hammers are more commonly used. The shorter stroke of the hammer are suitable for driving rivets of 5/8 of an inch diameter. The longer stroke of the hammers are driven all its larger slides. Other forms of riveting machines include the portable yoke riveter, the pinch bug portable riveter, a portable hammer type yoke riveter, a stationary riveting machine such as yoke riveters and all riveters and hydraulic riveters. D. Riveting in large holes. Standard steel working procedures requires reaming holes and surfaces and to be joined in the holes in our perfect alignment. It is not always possible to do this in freight car repair work. Though the whole old part may be enlarged by the wear, and any remaining weak end part in some case a rivet which is somewhat holder by slanting the hammer first in one direction to fit the large hole and then slanting it in an opposite direction. The rivet can be driven as to fill in the entire hole. The hammer can be rotated to the round and rivet and clinch in the edge of the repaired surface. E. The rivet of the partly inaccessible location. In many instances, because of the projection parts, it is difficult to obtain and clear access to the rivet. In such cases, the hammer is slanted at various sides, as well as the rivet shank is to hold the rivet more securely. After the head should always be completed, then edges should be clenched wrench and headed round-off. In some cases, special divide apparatuses may be used and reach most difficult and accessible spots. For an example, installation of drafting couples in the center seal for use with drafting gear is a pipe provided with a rivet header and can be bent to the desired shape. The bent portion will be placed in the fixed structure. The pressure exerted against the opposite end will force the riveted header against the rivet, and the other ends of the rivet shank can be formed into the head. Chapter 6, Draft Gear.